All right, well, we think we're back, and hopefully we're in the right orientation. This has been a learning experience once again.
I know, this Facebook Live thing, I swear. So we're excited to have everybody on board. This is 2019.
Yes, it is.
This is Sheila. Who are you?
I'm Walt, I think.
And our healthy recipes served up on Livliga.
Yes.
And the cool thing is this is number 11, but the first for 2019.
Yes. Happy New Year.
And because it's the middle of winter, it's January, we're looking forward to talking about bone broth soups with you because this is so perfect for this time of year. And we're excited to be able to bring in the new year with you. Hopefully it started off well. We're getting geared up. You know, we reboot this time of year.
Yes,
we think
do.
about how we want to live life in the year ahead and how we can live it as our healthiest selves. And so my new thing that I think is really fun is called the Word of the Year. Do you guys do that, the Word of the Year? So instead of resolutions where sometimes we set ourselves up for failure, and with a Word of the Year, it's sort of your guiding thought for how you can achieve what you want to do in the course of the year with your goals, whether it's for your health or your work or your family or your dreams. And so I think this Word of the Year thing is pretty cool. So I wanted to try it out this year. And actually, when I started thinking about it, I kind of do it every year. Because I really do focus on what is it
You do, and you have sort of a theme. You always
I have a theme every year, and so one year, a couple of years ago, it was intention.
Yes.
Because intention's really important, and so this year, as Walter will tease me about, I couldn't think of just one a word. I had to have two because that's just me.
Well,
and of course, there's no rules because they're my rules, right?
That's right.
Right.
And verbosity is sort of our middle name.
I know. It's hard for me to just, call it down to well, I have in the past, but this year I have two words. The first word is mindset because for me it's like really important that I focus
Very good
on
word. We like this.
On being consistent with who I am, what I know I can do, and where I want to go with that, and do it in the healthiest way possible. So positive mindset. And then the second word is all about measurement, because I realize that in this day and age, who I am at the age I am, there's just no fussing around. I have forever always thought that I just clearly didn't have to always measure. That clearly I could just do it like everybody else. Those skinny people out there, they never measure anything, right? That I could do that. But I realize now, the seasoned human that I am, that I got so out of whack when I was a young person that that's just not something I can do. So, measurement is my other word. So mindset and measurement are my other word. Hi, I wish you would come in the screen and stay there, please.
Well, I'm just trying to get something we can see.
So anyway, so Walter, do you have a Word of the Year?
Well, so I also had a little bit of an issue with numbers. So I thought, first of all, I was thinking about mindfulness, that I think it's really important to be centered and mindful and aware. And then I sort of went from centered and mindful into a word we've talked about recently, which is really a Japanese philosophy.
Oh, I think I know what he's going to say.
And I hope I say it right, but I say wabi-sabi, which is the whole idea of...
So that's two words, too.
No, it's hyphenated. It's a single word. It's wabi-sabi. And as I understand it, it's the whole concept that in perfection, there is imperfection that actually makes it more beautiful.
Yes.
And moreover, it's all about authenticity.
Here, authenticity is
so that's really, it's the wabi-sabi.
It's being honest with ourselves, right?
Exactly.
And
it's mindful,
genuine.
it's centered, it's all these things.
Yeah, I like that.
So I sort of came up with a word that's a philosophy that really then lets us get a lot of words.
That is kind of what that Word of the Year is, kind of your guiding philosophy, and that can help with your making of goals and decisions.
You didn't think I had one, did you?
I was putting them on the spot. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen, but good job.
Oh, good. Okay.
I like it. I'm with you. 150%.
Okay, well, let's get cooking. What are we doing?
So we're doing bone broth soups.
Yum.
And we're actually going to specifically do one, which is a turkey bone broth with roots.
And I will confess that we did this, and we sort of did a run-through a couple days ago.
Yes, we did.
And I will say, when we had the soup, I said it was, bar none, the best soup I've ever had. And we've done this before. It's always good, but somehow it just...
Sometimes it's just magical, isn't it? You know, it's the right day, the right time, the right roots, cooking.
But it's really, it's like Mom's old chicken soup, but with turkey. It was just heartier. It was really rich and complex.
Well, that's something that that we really speak to. You know, why are we talking bone broth soup? In the olden days, we just said broth, but bone broth soups have become really popular, and I think there are a variety of reasons why. They're super good for your health,
right?
And they're cheap to do. You know, here I got 3 turkey legs for $5.73. And that can feed 8 to 9 people. So truly, and I mean, obviously we have the roots, but roots are typically pretty inexpensive, as we know, particularly this time of year, because they're in season. So that's why this kind of soup is so wonderful, and it's so hearty and filling. So that's another thing, is not only are they cheap to make, but they're hearty in the sense that they're filling, but they're usually pretty low in calorie. And so,
do we have sound effects of our dog chewing on a bone?
Ooh, so appropriate. Yes.
It's a milk bone.
It's just gotta participate. Always.
Sorry.
So anyway, bone broth soups are so good for our immune system too, because of what's in those bones,
and for our joints and our ligaments. It's the collagen,
so
all those great things, glycosamine, and all those things that are in the bones.
Yeah, and then with the we've got calcium and
magnesium.
Yes, that's really good for kind of growing our bones and
gut health.
And gut health. That's kind of the collagen too.
Right.
And the gelatin kind of coats. So when we've got a raw stomach,
and you talk about gelatin. You think about
the nails, the skin,
and your hair,
and the hair.
That's it.
So
this is just a mind.
But that's why
incredible good things.
We wanted to spend some time on what it means to do bone broth soup, because you got to use the bones, you got to cook with the bones, you got to simmer, you got to let it cook for a long time. And I grew up in Kansas City. Well, actually, both of us grew up in Kansas City. But I had great fortune in a lot of the families that we were, connected to had incredible food, and a lot of it was sort of Southern in making, and so there was this tradition of bone broth soups, and I never knew it by that name growing up, but I learned at an early age that you always put those bones when you're creating broth because of the flavor. I didn't know about all the health benefits back then, but now, I mean, the list is long. I mean, it helps with your sleep. We've already talked about, our immune system. That's why when we talk about, chicken soup for the soul, it's not only, it's when we're sick. I mean, that's the first thing in our family we think about when someone's got the flu. What do we think about? We think about creating a pot of chicken soup. And there's a reason why, because it is so comforting, but it is so healing because of, it really helps our immune system. So anyway, we're going to make turkey bone broth and root soup. And it's something I love having there's so many different bone broths that you can create.
Like lamb or beef or...
right, exactly. And I don't tend to do beef, but you can totally do beef.
Right.
But I do love, this family loves lamb, so I have a lamb soup that's available on our blog. It's blog.livligahome.com. You can also find recipes. You can go to our blog through our website, which is livligahome.com. But we have the lamb. I have, of course, my own version of chicken soup. And then there's the turkey that we're doing today. This isn't vegetarian. You could certainly do a vegetarian version of what we're doing. But, for anybody who eats meat, this can be made to work for you in terms of how big you cut up the various vegetables, even the ones, if you don't want to have the white potato, you can add sweet potato.
Don's on. Hi, Don.
These are very versatile soups, but let's show you how we do it. So the first thing is you gotta do the bone broth. I do it in 2 steps so that you really get that richness of the broth, and this is homemade, all of it from scratch. Super easy to do. And you can use your crock pot to make the broth as well. But since I tend to do this kind of in one day, I tend to do the making of the broth on the stove, and then I use the crock pot to actually let the soup itself simmer. So you take the broth and you use that for the soup. So let's get started.
Yes.
So making the broth is super easy. And one of the things that I love about creating bone broths is, particularly this time of year, we tend to have leftover bones from these kind of big meals and things that we've created. So, you know, like the turkey carcass. And we come from, I'm very Scotch, you know, and literally, I guess I've got some Scotch in me. But, you know, it's like, let's not let anything go to waste.
We say Scottish.
Oh, Scottish.
If you have Scotch, you need maybe a little something else.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not talking about the bottled guy. Yeah, I don't like that. But anyway, moving on. So, you know, with the turkey carcass, that's really easy to do. And then we tend to like butterfly leg of lamb. And always when you go to the butcher, he'd say, do you want the bones? And of course, my gut reaction was, well, sure, I'll take the bones. And then they'd sit in the freezer. It was like, what do I do with these things? And so bone broths solve this problem. And you end up making this, you know, yummy soups out of it. So,
and those you may roast in the oven first to sort of bring up the flavor. And then
you could, but let's not make it complicated,
okay.
You know?
Right.
But anyway, so let's say you are ready for a bone broth and you don't have the carcass ready. Well, it's super easy. So for my turkey soup, I use these drumsticks. And I use drumsticks just because I think that there's more bone in it. Obviously, the dark meat. You could do thighs. I don't really think there's anything wrong with it. These are cheap and handy, and there are 3 of them, and they make
bone easily.
They need, yeah, exactly. When I make the bone broth, I leave the skin on, but when we take the meat off the bone, we get rid of the skin. So the skin's great. The fat is great for making that rich, yummy broth. So anyway, so what do we do? It's simple and easy. So if you could help me, we're going to do 12 cups of water, and we're going to put it in our yellow pot over here, and hopefully you can see me do that. Yes, please. We're going to do 2, not 1, but 2 bay leaves. And I do that again because it adds to the richness and because of the volume that we're creating. And then I do 20, I count them, 20 peppercorns. And obviously, it doesn't taste peppery at the end. It really is, again, a way to add some of that richness, you know, that savoriness that allows that bone broth to be really, and honestly, it does, some of that bone broth with that pepper in it is actually really good for you and your digestive system. So what are we doing too? So we've got the peppercorns, we got the bay leaves, we got the water. Yep. We're going to put these 3, I'm going to give these to Walt. So we have 3 drumsticks, and those are going in, and that's really the source of the bone and the meat and the broth. So I'm giving those to you over there too. And then the last thing that we do is just cut up 1 of these, you know, just a regular sized yellow onion. And I'm going to have to put my glasses on now, you guys, because I really do need to see what I'm doing. Walter has to confess that he nearly cut his finger off the other day, because, you know, we talk about these yummy knives that we love, because knives in the kitchen are really important. Having a good knife makes all the difference.
And a sharp knife is good.
And a sharp knife, and he does tend to sharpen his knives each time, which makes it a more pleasant experience, and obviously you can do a better job of cutting things up. But you have to watch what you're doing and not be doing 5 things at once, because poor Walter really sliced his finger up this week helping me with this bone broth soup. So lesson again learned. Unfortunately, you know, when you're in the kitchen, these things happen, but you want to try and
but it's
minimize.
Healing well. It's healing well. I'm very happy.
He almost bled to death, but not.
Okay, so I have 12 cups of water. I have 2 bay leaves.
Yes.
I have 20 peppercorns whole.
Yes, please. Did you count your 20 peppercorns?
I did. 2, 4, 6, 8.
All right.
I did.
All right, and I'm almost ready with this.
And then I'm going to put the turkey legs in. I have it on high.
Yes, I do put it on high until you get it to a boil, and then I don't do a hard boil. You do sort of you do a soft boil or a strong simmer, and you do that for 2 hours. And so for 2 hours, you're gonna cook the bones
And this is Shooter's recipe that you really developed.
Yeah.
It's on the blog, and it is so good.
It is really good.
And you do say slightly covered, or partly covered, or something like that.
No, you really covered.
Really is covered. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you do for the bone broth. That's it. And so, of course, presto changeo. Oopsie. Oh, you also can drop things on the ground. But we're going to have to pay attention to this because it is pretty high.
Yes,
so what we've discovered is, of course, when we're trying to do this for Facebook Live, you need at least 3
iterations.
3 iterations, and we don't have that many big pots, so we're kind of making do with one of our Dutch ovens and to do this, but we'll watch it and hopefully it'll be fine. So next, what we're going to do, presto changeo, as if we've done 2 hours.
2 hours later, what do we have? Look at that.
So now we have, and you can skim off the fat, so we're going to do a tiny bit of that.
So, but see, it smells so good, and that's just the...
And obviously you get rid of everything. So when you do the bone broth, all you want is the broth left over, and we actually need to get a big bowl out so that we can get the broth in there. And then we're going to debone the 3 different drumsticks, and then all that goes into the soup. So, so you get rid of the onion, you get rid of the bay leaf. If you see any leftover peppercorns, those get gone, and then we're going to sit here and debone the meat and show you how it just takes a little patience. It's very easy. Do you want to go ahead and
do you want me
to take these out so that
I would personally put them in another bowl so you've got them, but you're fine.
I'm fine. I'm making a mess fine. But you know how you are. You're alone in the kitchen, and if you don't get your fingers messed up, are you cooking? I'm just saying. So, go for it.
Okay.
And then the rest of that, and so he's going to do that. We're going to get the broth, and we're just leaving it in that bowl. Are you in a bowl?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So
I panicked to make sure we didn't lose our bone broth. But while we're leaving, did you just see that I took the skin off? So make sure you take the skin off, and if there are any kind of blueby things you don't want in your blueby is a very technical term.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there's like blood residue, that comes, just stuff that are off the legs that you might not want in.
The big thing on the legs is there are lots and lots and lots of ligaments. And so when you take the bone, there's that fun, very fine, needly bone that you want to watch out for, but then you also have to separate all
I realize that. Can we use that? Is that empty?
This is good. So this is your.
So what I'm asking is the pot something we can put the meat in, or can you get another big? My hands are dirty at this point, so.
That was my plan.
Thank you. So if you just get another big bowl or a little bowl. Okay. So we're getting a bowl out so that we can.
In that we're taking skin off.
Yes.
Did you save the skin?
I just put no. I'm not gonna save it, but I put it in there, which is our place that we're putting stuff.
Yeah.
So you just are patient. Any of the kind of the ligature, I don't put in the soup because I don't think most people like to eat it. So really, you're just trying
to go stuff.
The gristly stuff, no. So I'm just trying to get the meat. Period. So the skin, the ligature, the little bones, the big bones. The main thing that you want to do is hold on to the big bones, because those are going to go in the soup too, because you cook the soup for like 7 to 9 hours. And it loves it. It loves to be cooked. You know how a lot of times with soups, they taste even better the next day because they've kind of just been, all those flavors have been melding together and tasting delicious. And so also what I'm doing is I'm kind of, you know how you kind of shred meat? I do that with this so you don't end up with anything too big.
Okay, I would have to and chop, so I'm not.
Oh, you did? Oh, I wouldn't. So, I don't think you need to do that.
Okay. So,
is it wrong to do? No. I mean, if you want the pieces to be more uniform, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's a
some
step.
Some of my first ones in here may be a little bit.
It's okay. It's okay. Oh, I guess I can do it here. So anyway, the thing about this is, see all these little, these are like these little bones, little
ligaments,
cartilage.
The cartilage.
And so definitely you don't want to end up with those, and you kind of have to pay attention as you're doing it, or because they can kind of sneak by if you're not paying attention, because they're suddenly, that's the thing about the difference between like chicken. Chicken doesn't seem to have in there those legs, and they're also not as big, so that's probably one of the reasons. But have you guys ever gone to like a Renaissance festival or whatever, and one of the things they sell are roasted whole turkey legs, and they're really good. But you suddenly take a mouthful, you've got all this, this gristle or some of these little bone things that we're talking about. So they just have a lot of them, and so we're just. Ooh, see, this is kind of big. I would take that apart a little bit. Are you? Oh, look, he's so much faster than I am.
Oh,
he just took the second one, and he's going to get it done while I'm still working on my first. Thank you, Walter, for being that efficient. And so after we do this, then the broth pieces are ready to then for the next stage of creating the soup. And so
it involves lots of root vegetables.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to wash my hands and make noise. Sorry about that, guys. Or maybe I'll just kind of quickly wipe. They just can't be greasy because. And did you save your bone?
I have it.
The bone needs to be saved.
Yeah, it was a true what it is.
We should have 3. See these big long bones? We're saving those, and those are going to go in the soup. And so I think I've gotten rid of. See, found another one. Look at that. Mm-hmm. So we've got all this set up. Hopefully I put the right things in the right bowls. And then the next thing we're going to do is chop, 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 as Walter said. So I'm going to go over sorry, I have to go over here for a second. I'm trying to put this on low so it's not too loud, but it is. It is a kitchen. This is live. We are really cooking in our real kitchen for you guys.
Sheila and Walt.
Yes.
Serving up healthy recipes on Livliga.
Yes. Oh, and I forgot to mention that today we're going to focus on Vivente because we thought fresh start means sort of kind of a lively design that's sort of airy and makes us feel lighter. So our Vivente is really pretty that way. So we're going to offer that up when we serve up our soup. And then for this root soup, one of the things I've discovered is how sweet so many of the roots are.
It's amazing.
I feel like I grew up hating roots, partly because they were cooked to death. Partly it was the combination. There was no imagination. It was really basically carrots. Carrots and potatoes and a lot of the things. Sometimes a turnip. So what we're really going to do is kind of add a whole lot of variety of that. So one of the fun things I love doing is I love adding rutabaga and turnip. And I was going to say, so who knows the difference?
I do.
Can you not put it up so loud? If you do it a little lower, it's not quite so loud. In the kitchen, controlling our water so you can hear us. So the turnip, and actually this is a ginormous turnip. Usually, as Walt and I were talking about,
I always think of rutabagas as being bigger than a turnip.
So yeah, but this is a smaller rutabaga. But can you see that it's got kind of an orangey glow to it? But it has that same blush flesh at the bottom, kind of like a turnip. So they do look similar. It's just that the rutabaga kind of has a yellower flesh to it. We're going to peel the outside of all these. Again, that's a choice. You don't have to do that. In my soup, this soup, I do. It just tastes really yummy that way. So this is a parsnip. So we're going to do, typically it's 2 large carrots. I'm doing 3 smaller carrots.
That's what I do.
We're doing 2 kind of regular medium potatoes. We're doing 1 pretty medium parsnip. We're doing a ginormous turnip, and I tend to do the whole thing because it's like, what are you going to do with it afterwards? So again, I think that soups are very forgiving that way. So whatever you find at the grocery store, use that one, whatever it is, and look for one that's a pretty medium-sized version.
The only thing I can say is at one point. My mom was a great chicken soup maker.
Yeah,
and she loved making chicken soup, and she was always looking for the best recipe. I'll never forget going to Nikki's, the Greek restaurant up in Estes, and we had chicken soup, and it had lots of garlic and lots of lemon juice. And it was
liked that.
So then we had to start doing that. But I will say, when I took over and started making chicken soup at one point, I thought, carrots are good. I have lots of carrots. I'll just use more carrots.
Uh-oh.
And you can overdo carrots
in
chicken soup.
Yes, you can.
They can be sort of overpowering and turn the whole thing.
And my point really isn't add more as much as if you have one of something, go ahead and use it because they do vary in size. But a soup can be forgiving that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying, like, if you love carrots, add 7 of them to it. I don't think that's a good idea.
But I didn't.
Some people are like that.
Right.
Some people think more. If you like something,
if
more
some
is better.
Good, more is better, right?
Yeah. It's not so always. So we're
okay. So
here we are, peeling away.
So then I'm going to do sort of.
Yeah, he did a really good job. He tends to do bigger chunks than and I thought for our soup. That it was
so
just
I was going to say,
how
you
he
do the
does
same.
that.
Okay.
So our
it's
chunks are probably going to be different in the
inch
soup because my chunks are different than his. But
it's probably a 3/4 inch chop that I did, rather than a dice or a big.
And that kind of holds up nicely when you're cooking all these things. And the reason why you cook it, I of course love slow cookers. I mean, a lot of people, and we're going to be doing some Instant Pot down the road, and it works well for many things. But I also love the benefit of that saturation of flavors over time. And for me, what's really convenient is getting up, putting something together, leaving it alone for the day so I go off and do my things. Either it's the adventures on a Saturday and having fun with
or
my
it's
hubby, or during the week it's work. And I mean, this week we're having a few of these because of the slow cooker. Because for me, if I have late meetings, it's so nice not to have to come home and start from scratch. And this time of year, it's just, there's so many warm, cozy soups and stews and chilies that you can make.
And the one thing we did wrong, we really should have started with the leek. I will do it next.
Okay,
because
we do need the leek.
The first part of this is actually to braise the leek and the salt pork.
Okay, so he just told you
the
super secret of this soup. The flavor of salt pork, and you don't need a lot. So we're cutting up 4 ounces of salt pork, and they tend to come in like 12-ounce blocks. And so you don't use all of that. You definitely want just 4 ounces, but it adds it continues to add richness to the flavor of your bone broth. I use it both in this turkey, and it depends if it's a meatier or a heartier meat. I think it works really well. So with the lamb as well, I use it, and it's just so good.
Part of your southern upbringing.
It's my southern upbringing. But again, you don't have to use a lot. And, a cup and a half of this soup, when all is said and done, is 342 calories. A cup and a half.
And the rutabagas, I don't know if you can see, but they're just really a lovely sort of pale, peachy color.
They really are pretty. So they make the soup really pretty, and the carrots. So you want it to be a colorful soup, which is why in this bone broth soup, I've got carrots, I've got rutabaga, I've got parsnip.
The other thing we talked about when we do the leek is when we were growing up, leeks were always grown in really muddy soil, and you really had to clean them.
Boy, were they
so what I was always taught, keep a leek whole, cut off the very tip of the roots.
You need to do that regardless.
Exactly. And then I actually cut it in an X. So I do lengthwise up as far as I'm going to go, which really is the white part of the leek. Cut it in one direction, turn it over 90 degrees, cut again, so you have an X. So this all separates, and then you run that under the water.
Anymore, though, you guys, I think these are hydroponically done because they're just
so beautiful.
If you bought these in France, you'd need to clean them the way Walt's talking. But in the States these days, they really changed how they grow those leeks. So you used to be, you'd end up with mud if you didn't. It took a while to kind of clean out your leeks. But they again. A leek is different, very different in flavor from an onion.
And they also go down to nothing. The wonderful thing about
they just kind of melt into whatever
richness and thickness.
Dish you're creating. So, so that is going to be sautéed with the salt pork. So you start with that, so that kind of starts the process of the soup. And then we're going to saute in the rest of the roots for just about 5 minutes.
And again, on the leek, I use basically the white and just the light green, but not any more than that.
Right. Otherwise, that can be bitter or kind of, just kind of too intense.
And then I'm going to cut the salt pork. I'm going to do 4 ounces of it.
So it's half of what he has because we've already made, a batch of.
I weighed it the first time, and I know it was 12.
Yeah. And half of that should work because we know it was.
So this is now 8. Right?
Yeah. So anyway, I'm about finished taking off all the skin of all these guys. And then, this is really, the hardest part is chopping the stuff up. I mean, making the broth is super easy, and I deliberately didn't want to make it complicated because really it's all about the time of cooking with those bones to really eke out the benefits of those bones and have that, you know, become part of the soup and part of the, well, first part of the broth and then part of the soup, because then we keep these bones and we put the bones back in the soup. So not only did it get the time while it was cooking to create the broth, but then it's going to get more time with those bones. And I don't add, you know, some people have added, you know, like additional, you know, already pre-made broth. Sometimes I can do that with my chicken soup.
And truly, Mom's trick with chicken soup was she always added bouillon, or she would cook the chicken in store-bought broth
because I
to
think
make
we
it
don't
richer.
Cook it quite as long,
right. But with this, you don't need to.
You sure don't need to. So now I'm going to cut up these, and then we're going to get to sauteing. And have you checked on that to see is it boiling up? Our broth that will be for a later edition.
Future broth.
Our future broth. So, so you do have to pay attention when you're cutting. So even though I'm talking to you guys, I have to look down here because I don't want to do what Walter did earlier this week.
That was I was talking to somebody else.
Yes, you were. You were a distracted person. But with host chopping, you do kind of have to pay attention.
And hard. You know, root vegetables are hard.
Yeah, they can move on you. Yeah. That's another trick, you guys. I don't know if you noticed, but when you cut, so let's, hopefully you can see me as I'm cutting, but when you cut a root vegetable, particularly an onion, whatever, I often cut it down, whatever middle that is, and then the part that you cut that's flat, you put that against your cutting board, and that way it doesn't slip and slide, so you're not worrying about the knife slicing into your fingers because the root itself has moved on you. And then I just, you know, I tend to slice down the middle again. And it kind of depends, you know, like with big old round things like turnips, you gotta cut those several times. But always put the flat side down, and that way you have a lot more control. And I'm not, you know, I'm not a trained chef or anything, but these are things that I've learned to do things safer, that are things that chefs do. They do it way better, and they know more how to do it even more efficiently. But that's a safety trick that I want to share in terms of when you're cutting up your root vegetables. And again, I'm probably doing mine smaller than Walter. There's no right or wrong here, and they're all going to cook well. But it's kind of, what do you want your soup to look like when you serve it up? And I'm kind of a, you know, medium-sized chunk. So mine are kind of looking like that. And so now I'm going to do the parsnip and cut it up. And usually, you know, I trim a little bit off of each end so that you don't end up with that kind of brown stuff. And if we have a bowl here, normally I just, of course, put it in the sink. But with the Facebook Live and doing this with Walt and you guys, we kind of needed to stay right here. So that's what I'm doing. I cut it in the middle, put the flat side down.
There's something so wonderful. Just the aroma of a fresh turnip. It has that. It's bright.
Look how white and pretty that is on the inside.
It's just great.
You know, and who would have thought a turnip would be a yummy thing? And you know, I started talking about how roots can be so sweet. So they kind of can help create that gravy of a broth soup because there's a lot of starch in roots. But they also have so much flavor, and each one of them. And so what I've learned over, thank you, this is taking some of my roots, is that there's a sweetness, and when you complement a rutabaga and a parsnip, they actually are very sweet. You put them with maybe, you know, a turnip. I don't know. It's kind of a meaty one. I think of it as not being as sweet as the others. So you know, you balance these out. Of course, we think of a carrot as sweet, of course. And so it's wonderful. And the potato, you know, the potato is going to kind of absorb whatever you have as a flavoring. And we're putting thyme in this, so
really
that is, and I do it. I hate those little tiny leaves and having to take them off of each sprig or whatever. When you're making a soup, you don't need to do that. You can just put sprigs in it.
And then you remove the sprigs.
And then you remove the sprigs, so you get all the benefits of the flavor of that without the hassle of all of the trimming and, you know. trying to get those individual leaves. There's no need for that when you're doing this soup. So that's what we do. We have a little tiny bit of pepper and a tiny bit of added salt. We do, you know, like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of pepper.
Yeah,
there's more pepper in it just because there's already salt in the salt pork, of course. So have we done all of it?
Yeah, so I'm going to do this one carefully.
Right on. Thank you. So we now chopped everything up. See, it wasn't too painful. And it was kind of fun because I was talking to you. So if you got some kids around, you got a hubby around, it's a great time to get
not at all
help you.
Not at all as painful as the last time.
Yeah, oops, he was very, that finger, I'm telling you. So anyway, so we've got this, we're gonna, I have this wonderful all-clad that Denise and Tom gave to us. That is one of my favorite things because you have the insert, and the insert can go directly onto the stove. So you can do your sauteing and braising right in this and then put it in and make it become the slow cooker. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this over here. Hopefully you can see me. And we're going to put the salt pork in. I'm turning it on to heat it up a little bit. Hopefully it's going to, there we go. So as you can see, this is about, you know, a little over a half cup, would you say?
Yeah, well, 4 ounces, it should be a half cup.
It's a half cup. And so that's all it is. He's chopped it up into little pieces, and that, you know, is going to become part of the soup, and it's so good. So we're going to plop it in here, and it's kind of needing to heat up a little bit. I don't hear any sizzling yet.
Right, I wait until it sizzles.
Yeah, that's a better way
I think
of
I should
going
do
about
5 minutes with this and 5 minutes with both.
Yeah.
No, 5 together.
No, we're the leeks. So here's the leek. So once that starts sizzling, we're going to put the leek in, and just, you know, up to 5 minutes. I don't even know what I say in the
You say
recipe.
5, and that's
Do
what
I say in the recipe 5? Yeah. So you saute 5 minutes, and then it's another 5 minutes with the other roots, and that's just to kind of get all that slightly cooked and slightly tasty with the, salt pork. And then we're going to turn it on once we put the meat and the broth in. And it's as simple as that. This is not complicated. There are a couple of steps. And honestly, I wanted to mention with the broth. So we made extra broth, or we're making it right now. I'm not going to make another batch of soup with that. But the wonderful thing is both the broth and the soup, they freeze really well. So what I'm going to do is save the bones, save the meat, and save the broth, and hopefully if I have a container that fits the bones in there too, I'm going to put it all in together and freeze it like that. If you want to use the turkey broth for some recipes and do it as a separate thing, by all means do that, and use the meat for salads or for a turkey hash. I have a great recipe for turkey hash. I mean, there's so many things you can do with the broth and the meat that you can just make it as a batch. It's a super easy thing to do. And you can also use it later as a base for your soup. And that's what I'm going to do because we love this kind of soup this time of year. So I'm just going to freeze it and get it out in a couple of weeks and make another batch of, and it just, that step's already done for me.
Yeah.
That 2 hours has already been completed. So it makes me able to just set up and do the soup.
And you'll put masking tape on it and mark it in terms of the date.
That's my husband always reminding me, Sheila, always do that. Okay, so I'm not always perfect.
But if you have the date on it and you know what it is.
I also started on my phone. I have in the freezer list with dates because otherwise I also tend to forget. You know, we got those deep freezers. Well, actually, it's it's just part of our refrigerator, but it's the kind with the basket, so you can get layers, and so you're gonna forget what's on the bottom. At least I do. Yes. So anyway, we're going to make the soup.
Cleo and Ashley and all sorts of people.
Hi guys, so nice to have you on board, and really happy New Year. I hope it started. I know, and January. I just feel like we're already in the full swing of this year, and I hope it started off well for you guys. I think we're feeling pretty good about the new year and the possibilities, and really looking forward to spending, the year ahead with you guys, and the various ways we do, whether we get to see you at some of the conferences we go to, or just on Facebook Live, or when we're, traveling about where we live in our old hometown. So, really looking forward to that. Also, I wanted to mention, as we're sauteing right now the salt pork with the leeks, And again, it was just one link that we're using. So that's a very easy thing to get at the grocery store. But I wanted to mention that as part of starting the new year, we launched a new ebook. And you know, all of our ebooks are free and downloadable. They're super easy to access. And you can find them generally on different pages of our website or in the emails we send out. I'll put the link in this particular Facebook Live for our new ebook, which is all about healthy lifestyle and weight loss. Because that's one of the things that obviously I focused on a lot in my own life. Walt and I have spent time, you know, really concentrating on our healthy lifestyle. This past year, actually this past couple of years, I have to be honest with you guys, it's been really challenging for us as a family, and I kind of got out of whack. You probably saw that happen, you know, on Facebook and when you were with me. And now things are good and we're feeling much more in control, and this is the ebb and flow of life, right? And so I'm really looking forward to this year and being able to really kind of get in my skin of healthy lifestyle again. This healthy lifestyle, this is a book that is really all about the various ways that we can not only get ourselves in gear to right-size our world, which helps us lose that weight, but then, you know, the biggest issue is long-term. How do we keep it off long-term? And
so you said 5 minutes, it's been 4, and
I think we're
ready to go.
Okay, and so now we're going to put the rest of the root vegetables in.
Right, including the potatoes, right?
Everything gets
I do all this sort of on a medium-high. I'm going to raise these just a little bit as I put these in.
Okay, good. I'm going to rinse the thyme. So we're doing 5 sprigs of thyme in the soup. And so I just get this at the grocery store. So anyway, our healthy lifestyle and weight loss ebook is now available. We launched it this month. You'll be the first to get it if you want to download it. You can find it on our page right now if you scroll, and I'll also put it embedded in the comments on this particular Facebook Live. But check it out. I think it has some really great tools and steps and tips for helping us all get in gear for the new year and to sustain that. And it also gives insight into, you know, I think, you know, one of the things that's really important, do you mind mentioning that now that I'm chatting away? There are some folks here in Colorado. They wrote, Dr. Jim Hill and Dr. Holly Wyatt, they wrote The State of Slim, and they have this wonderful organization, wellness organization that you can go to in Denver and to apply all this. But one of the things that they've done is really study people who've succeeded long term. And it's actually the National Weight Loss but it's the National Weight Loss Registry. And these are people who have kept their weight off for 3 years or more, and they've had to have lost 50 pounds or more and kept it off for that period of time. And so there's great insight into understanding how do people do this long term? What are their habits? What are they doing that allows them to sustain this? And so that's in the ebook as well. What those tips are in terms of how have they created a lifestyle for themselves, which is of course, you know, right sizing it is key. Never gaining more than 10 pounds without taking it off again. Building in exercise. You know, those are some of the tips. So check it out. See what other tips there are. But this really is, and that's where we're talking about bone broth soup. Mm-hmm. That it is one of those things. Soups are recommended by anybody who helps people with weight management because they're filling and they're generally low in calories. And of course, what we're focusing on is their deliciousness. So tonight, and they're just so healthy. And this time of year, you know how we fight. Did you guys get your flu shots, for instance? We just did. The last week, I guess it was already. A little slow maybe, but we did it. And but you know, part of the thing is how do we stay well and how do we get well if we're a little under the weather? And these bone broth soups are, in fact, a really fantastic way to help. And then to make it a meal, So what we're doing is, you can hopefully hear this yummy sizzling in the background. There's something wonderful about, you know,
and you put these big chunks of vegetables in, and they look so cold and so like they're not going to. Yeah. And then after 5 minutes, they sort of start to sweat, and they really just.
He's making me hungry. Good thing we're going to be eating dinner with this. And actually, will you turn the back one on a little bit, since that's the one we're going to suddenly have our soup ready and try it out and tell you guys about it. But to make it a meal, one of the things, if you'll remember and you've watched our past videos, I'm a big believer in muffins, and of course they freeze really well too. So I got some of the holiday muffins we made, which are the mini muffins that are in a variety. So you can pick and choose which ones you want, and 3 of these with the soup is a perfect meal. If you happen to have guests and you want to add a little something to it, you can just do a simple green salad, and that's what we're doing tonight. We actually have another kiddo in town and a friend of his, and so we're going to have this soup tonight for dinner, and with our muffins that we're going to heat up. And so those were in the freezer. I didn't have to make those, but again, it's something homemade, ready to go. I just got them out of the freezer this morning, and we're going to heat them up and have them with the soup, and then it's a fresh salad. So that's our dinner tonight. And all these recipes are available. I use my light vinaigrette as the vinaigrette for the salad. So again, it's healthy, it's light, it's delicious, you know, because it's homemade, and it has all these good ingredients like lemon, fresh lemon, and it has, this is the vinaigrette.
And apple cider vinegar, which is so good for you.
And also that wonderful Dijon mustard, and a little bit of tarragon. And so again, and that's something you can pre-make. You know, I make it in a mustard jar. At some point, we'll do a whole thing just on
vinaigrettes and
salad dressings, because they're so easy to make up ahead of time. And you can have 1 or 2 or 3 in the refrigerator, and then, you know, basically the meal is ready to go. It's as easy as that.
Okay, so I've been on for 5 minutes.
Okay, let's put it over here. We're going to get it set up in my cooker.
Our stock has started to boil, so at 8:30 it's going to be done. I'm just saying.
Okay, thank you. So that'll be 2 hours for the broth that we put together to demonstrate for you all.
Okay, so that's in.
Okay, so we've got all of the roots in here, and the salt pork, and we're now going to pour the broth in, and we're going to add 3 additional cups of water to make sure that we have enough of that liquid in making the soup. And again, we're adding the meat and some bones, so that this water is going to become its own broth too. It's going to be integrated into all this. You do need a pretty big, ouch, I can't believe I just did that. You do, it was hot. You do need a pretty big,
I make sure that the bones go down.
In this, it's in order to be able to do this. So yeah, so while it's putting the bones in, making sure they're covered, we put all 3 leg bones, the big main bones, in there, and now we put all the meat in there.
And then we have a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper.
Yeah. So and we're putting the sprigs. So we just rinsed these sprigs, and you're supposed to put 5 sprigs in. And again, you can just.
That's a generous 5.
Yeah, it is. I was in the mood.
That's what I did last time. It was very good.
Yeah. And so just kind of make sure it's integrated in there. You don't have to get it all the way in, but just make sure it's, you know, in the liquid. And then we're doing a half teaspoon of pepper, and then just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And that's it, guys. This is it. And you let it cook for 7 to 9 hours. It really depends on your day and what that looks like when you actually get the soup going. I would actually stir that a little bit, just so that the pepper and the salt don't stay on the top. That's kind of weird if you do that. So, so we're gonna set this up. Actually, I'm gonna turn this on a little later, just so that I can have it overnight, since we're doing this in the evening.
Okay.
So we're gonna cook it for 9 hours overnight. So that's another choice that you can make, depending on what your day looks like and what you're doing. You know, and soup, believe it or not, in some cultures, soup is something you eat for breakfast.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, these bone broth soups can be eaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's the wonderful thing about them. And they can be made, honestly, at any time of year. Just like Walt was talking about his mom and her chicken soup. She literally made chicken soup, I think, just about every week. It seemed like to me.
Once a week. Right?
Year round. It was just one of her. And it also, the thing that's wonderful about soups, and particularly these bone broth soups, is not only are they nutritious, not only are they very affordable to make, but they're also one of those things that can serve a few or serve many. It's a very versatile, very adaptable kind of recipe and for a meal. You know, you can really serve a lot of people. This one is 8 to 9 servings, a cup and a half is what I've done, and 342 calories, and it's got meat in it, it's got all those wonderful roots in it, it's got all that broth in it, it's got that salt pork in it. All that amounts to 342 calories for a cup and a half, which is very filling.
Right.
You know, and so that's the story. We're going to serve up now.
So do we need lemon juice, and parsley, or not?
Yes, we're going to, we have already put the lemon juice in this.
Perfect.
So we're just going to top it off in this, but when this is cooked for the 7 to 9 hours, then you end up with, I think it's 4 tablespoons is what I've said in here. And again, typically I do a lemon and just pour it in. So before you serve it, it kind of brightens up the flavor. I think that's one of the things that Walt really loved about it. Was so fresh. Yeah. You know, when you put that lemon juice, it just like zaps all the flavors in it and just kind of like heightens them and makes it so good. And then just to make it pretty, you can sprinkle some parsley on the top, and then you've got, again, if all you're going to have is soup and maybe a muffin, then to have a little bit of that fresh parsley on top, it makes it look pretty, but it's also, you know, again, it's wonderfully good for you. So I already had some pre-chopped up parsley here to use, but this is what, when we're doing it tonight for all of us as a family, I'm going to get my fresh parsley and chop it up so we can put that on the top.
And are you going to use a 3/4 cup lid spoon to serve a cup and a half?
Oh my goodness, what a great idea. So 2 3/4 cups makes a cup and a half. So that makes it super easy to measure out, so you don't have to get 2 soup spoons or 2 of our lid spoons dirty. So we have that 3/4 cup. And here we go. Yeah. I'm going to serve it up. We have our pot. So voila, somehow we're 7 to 9 hours later. And are you going to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it over for you, but you're going to do it.
No, we'll just do it right over here. Because that's what we typically do, right, guys? You serve it right up off the stove. Oh my gosh, and look at this.
It smells so good.
Look at this. It's so good looking. It's got all, and it's so hearty, Walt. So you don't feel like you're being gypped or denied. I'm kind of not doing that perfectly because I was eyeballing it. So here it is. Walter, you always have to show everybody. Do you want to put it on the plate?
No, I could do it just like this.
Okay, so I hope you guys can see it.
Oh, it's just really, I wish you could smell it.
It's so hearty. So one of our wonderful things, sometimes...
Wait.
Oh!
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so imagine there's a, well, we can just do a little bit of this. It's not going to kill us. So you put a little bit. Oh, look at that. So pretty.
Yes.
And then, okay, try it out. Well, but be careful, it's kind of hot. So you probably need to turn it. Oh, good. Be careful. Good.
It's so good.
I'm going to taste some of that broth.
Oh, it's so good. It really is.
See? It's just so flavorful. It's so good. And really so good for you. So I hope that you all have wonderful memories of your bone broth soups growing up, or that you remember somebody, like we have great affection with Gigi and her chicken soup. And
if not, start your tradition now.
Exactly. And also know that not only is there chicken soup out there, but there's turkey bone broth soup. And I also have a lamb Welsh root soup that's available. So you don't always have to have the same kind of soup to have a bone broth soup. And so we hope that you enjoy. We've served up, where is the bottom?
Yeah, right there.
There we go. So we've served up our soup on Vivente, and We hope that you're enjoying the evening, that your new year, 2019, has started well, that you'll think about your word of the year. You know, I told you mine is mindset and measurement. Yes, that's 2 words. And what's yours, Walter?
Wabi Sabi, and it's one word. It's hyphenated. It's 1 word.
It's, yeah,
Wabi
he's saying
Sabi.
it's 1 word.
Check
I
it
think
out.
he's stretching it. But anyway, enjoy, and we'll see you next month. It's going to be on Tuesday, February 19th, and since February is Heart Month and Valentine's Day, we're going to talk about heart-healthy chocolate, and I'm going to make my famous rosemary dark chocolate chip cookies.
Yum.
They're different than any kind of chocolate chip cookie I think you've ever had, and
They're really good.
probably the most delicious ever.
Yes.
So
definitely.
we hope, again, that you've enjoyed healthy recipes served up on Livliga, and here's to you, and enjoy a bone broth soup on us. Take care.
Enjoy. Good to see you guys.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you.
so
Thanks
much
for
for
coming.
joining us.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
coming. Come again. We'll see you soon.